G'day and welcome back to More Cowbell, Please. Today we've got Luke Munns. Luke is a producer from Sydney, Australia. He is one of the founders of Hillsong United. Apparently it was his inception, his idea that branded it that. And Paul Mabury talks about it in this clip from a previous episode.
John Mayer and Brooke were doing a tour together. We were playing Sydney. I didn't know it, but a couple of my friends, Luke Munns, Ruben Morgan, a bunch of the Hillsong musicians and writers were there. Ruben asked Munnsy, who's a drummer, who actually was like one of the big brains behind United initially, not only with music, but the brand. Because they were just a bunch of young guys, Joel, Marty, Samson, Munns, Luke Munns. Ruben leans over to Munns and says, while I'm playing drums for Brooke, how do I get in contact with Mabury? He goes, well, you could talk to him on Sunday. Ruben had no idea I went to church there.
Now, I am a huge supporter of Christian music. I really believe in the power of music to change lives, to draw people into the gospel, give them the good news. It's not a genre, it's a lyric. There is some tough stuff that we're going to talk about in this episode. It's just a short one, but we get into a little bit of the Hillsong stuff. So I hope you'll enjoy this episode for what it can be. And there's some pretty funny stuff towards the end about one of our local celebrities, Bernie Herms, the great producer and piano player. I'm super thankful for each of you that have reached out and encouraged me and told me you've enjoyed the podcast so far. I'm really wanting it to be helpful to people who are both in the business and thinking about being in the business. It's a podcast for dreamers, the people who've dreamed to be part of that powerful song, that spiritual experience that is able to change lives. If you haven't subscribed yet, of course, please hit the button. Next week's guest is Zach Kelm. Zach Kelm is the manager of Skillet. He was the manager of Rebecca St. James. He also manages Colton Dixon. He's such a great manager. I lived with Zach actually when I first came to the US, when we were all living out at the Smallbone farm. There's so much wisdom in what he says. He just has this innate ability to understand what's needed. Here we go with another Aussie. If you like Aussie accents, you're going to love this one. This is Luke Munns. Hey. Welcome to my studio, Luke, and welcome to America.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
This is an unusual podcast because normally it's Nashville people. We're doing someone outside of Nashville. Luke is visiting from, well, tell us where you're visiting from.
Visiting from Brisbane, Australia. I moved there during COVID and I loved it there so much. Go to church on the Gold Coast, love it down there, which is like Florida, palm trees, no cold.
I love it. I mean, I lived there for a year before I came to America. I'd still be living there. It's such a great, beautiful climate. But hey, life is here in America. It's good. Welcome to the best country. Which is the best country on earth? Should we have that debate?
I think so. I can't say Australia is. Australia's a little bit messed up, but America has been messed up. It depends on what side of the aisle you fall. It is getting better.
Well, I'm going to give you some rules for this podcast. Number one, no swearing.
Okay, yeah, oh, cool.
And number two, we don't do politics.
Okay.
For the listener, we have only just met a couple of hours ago, so I don't know Luke's story at all. We're about to find out. All right, Luke, I want you to give me the life story. Like, start it out from the top, put as much detail in or anything. I mean, it's with a view to how'd you get into the music business?
Yeah, no, good question. So, man, it's an honor to be here. You've been a hero of mine for a long time. I have V6s because of you. You posted that you always use them and you use them on the Jesus Culture album. So I went and bought a pair on Gumtree, we call it, which I don't know what the equivalent is here. It's where you like the classifieds, like Marketplace.
Marketplace.
I went and bought some and I've been using them ever since. I grew up in Sydney, Australia. Started playing like piano, guitar and drums from about 3 years old.
Wow.
Started taking it seriously about 7 kind of onwards. At the age of 12, I auditioned to be in the youth band at Hillsong. Yeah, so was doing that in the youth band, and then that became what we know now as Hillsong United. So all those boys, Marty, Joel, Houston, Marty Sampson, Joel Houston, Michael Chislett, we all formed a band called Able growing up. So 14, 15, 16, 17, sort of 18, we did that. So we had done like our 10,000 hours together as a band before, because we rehearsed 2 nights a week, did gigs like all over the place. We had done that and won a competition, which is similar to like an MTV kind of competition as like best band in Australia.
Like a mainstream.
Yeah, mainstream.
thing.
So we had done that before we even got to United. So that's why, in a way, United was always going to work because it was already a band. It's like saying Coldplay become Christian and this is them kind of thing. So that's where that came from. So I knew those boys like my brothers back then. And then we ended up doing United, which is when kind of moved it into the church. And then we started writing and recording music with guys like Reuben Morgan. And then we started releasing songs, and we were kind of like, we were somewhere like around Delirious, like, and then we were listening to like Blink-182, Coldplay was just coming out, Radiohead, U2. We're listening to all that kind of music and then putting that into church, which is why it kind of blew up and why it was so revolutionary, because we were rebelling against what had been done. And at the time, now that I'm in Nashville for the first time, is because we were kind of rebelling against Nashville, because we were like, don't play that. That's too Nashville. So we were like trying to be, Green Day as opposed to Michael W. Smith or something like that. So that's what we were kind of rebelling against. So me coming to Nashville is like coming of age in some ways.
Are you coming where we make proper music?
That's right.
Yeah, we do the real thing.
Yeah.
It is interesting having an Aussie in the studio. Americans have a different filter and a different view. I had no idea. All of those United guys, like you said, Marty, Chislett,
Joel, Houston, we're all in a band growing up.
You were playing at church a bunch, or like youth shows?
Yeah, all the youth group.
You were touring the States?
Yeah.
You toured the States multiple
started
times?
touring America.
Now, you were the drummer?
Yeah, I was a drummer for 15 years.
Did you have much hand in the writing?
Yeah.
You were co-writing on this stuff?
Yeah, we were workshopping and co-writing everything. It was hard to get on the credits. I was more of a ghostwriter, so I'd just throw in chorus or a bit here and there or a line. It was hard to get on. There was sort of like an unspoken rule that, you really needed to add like 30% and above to get on a song, which has changed now. We sort of start at 10% or something like that now. Right. If you change a word here or there, you don't really get on the song. But in that case, you had to write a big chunk, or you have to kind of be one of the originators of the song to get on. That was hard because as time went on, like you wouldn't be getting paid. So you're just kind of like living on a shoestring budget and touring around the world and being a rock star for Jesus, but not really getting looked after. That was my journey and my story.
I have to go there because it's one of the biggest stories on the planet as far as church goes. Is Hillsong has had a big crisis. Do you have anything to say about that, or do you have a perspective? Like, are they the devil, or are they God's people, or is there a little bit of everything in there? Like, I'm interested what your experience of all that is. Like, are you coming out burned and hurt, or are you coming out, no, that was a great time? Where are you at on it?
Yeah, man, I'm happy to open up. I like to try and be diplomatic as possible, because I think, most of these people are great people, but I think it just sort of exploded and it was a move of God. I believe it was like a revival, because we used to have these revival meetings at summer camp that would go for hours and hours and hours, just people praying and crying and lying on the ground and all that. And that's where a lot of the music came out of, is those kind of moments. So that was all real. I think that in general, people had the right heart, but then you get, as it blew up and you had a bit of greed and a little bit of exploitation in there, and you had people that sort of meant well, but once there was money and fame and all that involved, they kind of got to their head a bit. Overall, I'd say that 90% of people are really great people, and I have a lot of love for them. I'm not burnt and hurt. I did have to pull out just because I needed to get a job. No one was getting paid except for the songwriters. And so I needed to pull out. I prayed about it. I got advice, and it was just like, I've got to go and stand on my own 2 feet now. So started my own band and became a producer, and the rest is history. I think a lot of the stories you hear, a lot of the documentaries you see, sadly 50% is probably true. Some of the people are just bitter and twisted, and you're like, that's not true. But then some of it, you're like, yeah, that really did happen, or sadly that did go down. And so I think they've got a lot of cleaning up to do. There's a lot of sweeping under the carpet that happened, that they've got to lift up the carpet and look under there. I don't think they're the devil. I don't think they're a cult. I don't think anything like that. Some people are like, this is a cult. This isn't even Christianity. Some people don't listen to Hillsong music, but I think God did a lot of good things for a lot of great people. I have a lot of respect for so many people there, and I still do, and I still have great relationships there. So, and I mostly try and protect that. But, there is some truth that's there, and some things that do need to be dealt with and sorted out, and they're in the process of that, doing the best they can.
I don't think there's a sinless pastor, or there are no sinless church believers. There are no sinless believers. Nobody in that scenario is without blame or without fault. It kind of makes me mad when I see some of the YouTube channels going on about, this is Satan's music, or the devil's got this, or this doctrine's wrong. I'm like, you want a church with perfect doctrine?
No.
it's never going to happen.
No church is perfect. I was doing like 100 churches a year before COVID. I've slowed down on that, thankfully. And every church has issues. Every church needs a mediation between this person and this person. Every church has got that, the guy smoking a joint out in the car park. It's the body of Christ. It's not perfect. And so I think for anyone to think that their church is perfect, like I can tell you what behind the scenes, that there's some stuff going on, not major scandals or anything like that, but some people are struggling and suffering, you know, and they do dumb things or stupid things. So
the net situation is good, what the church does in helping people, and that's what we should be more focused on. That's interesting just to hear the perspective. The media likes to sensationalize the worst of the worst and miss out on all the good.
The corporate sort of mega church model isn't good at when people make mistakes. You know, like a trapeze artist, we're all doing these crazy tricks and crazy projects and crazy things, and then when they fall, there should be a net to catch you, and there should be a process of rehabilitation or rehab, exactly like, if they get caught in sexual sin or drugs or alcohol or anything like that, you know, we don't catch them and help them pick them up and get them back on their feet. And I think that comes down to that corporate branding thing. It's like, I'll disassociate my brand from you. That can be quite toxic in the church when instead of embracing and loving the fallen one, like the prodigal son story, we're separating and we're saying, you're condemned, you're cancelled, you're out, give us your keys, here's your box of stuff, bang, shut the door.
Because you're going to damage our brand.
Yeah, that should be eliminated, like ruthlessly, I think. It should be normalized that people are going to see psychologists for therapy when they need it. And it should be normalized that some pastors go on marriage retreats if they need it, or they go on deep healing retreats, and spiritual cleansing and deep healing retreats should be normal for people that are struggling. We should have a process where it's like, okay, for 3 to 6 months to a year, depending on how bad what you've done is, we're going to look after you. We're going to get you back on your feet. We're going to start giving you small responsibilities again and see how you go. And
it's almost like you're saying, if you're not perfect, you're not good enough. Jesus ate what? Prostitutes and tax collectors.
And he gave them opportunity to change. So you look at the story of the tax collector, whatever Jesus said to him and did, he gave back all the money and more. So there was a transformation of the guy's life. Same with Paul to Saul. He was killing the Christians, got radically transformed, and then wrote like half of the New Testament. With politicians, you know, you look at them and it's like, oh, this person did a bad thing 20 years ago. But at the end of the day, like if we look through our lives, we're going to find something that we did wrong in the last 20, 30, 40 years that we are embarrassed about, that we wish we didn't do, or that if it got shown up on a big screen that we'd be mortified.
I've often thought to myself, what would happen, you know, suddenly I got shot to mega fame. What people would come out of the woodwork?
And their version of the story is always going to be like, you know, there's always 3 sides to every story, your side, memory. Their side, and the truth. And
and memory is a crazy thing. You always thought you were going to do music. Is there anything else you ever thought you were going to do?
I've never really had any other hobbies. Like, so people say, what do? Do you go surfing? It's like, well, I tried that and I kept hurting myself, like banging myself in the face or cutting myself, or like I'm playing the drums with one arm because I've like, you know, hit the sand on the wrong angle. And I've always wanted to do music. I've been obsessed in it really. And when everyone else was doing other things, I'd be the guy editing the bass and editing everything on the weekends. And, you know, they'd all go out to dinner and I'd be editing. And so I started off like that. And I'm a bit of a workaholic in that thing, is that I've had to really pull back from working 60 hours a week every week. And so now I try and do about 40 with a little bit on the weekend, which to me is very pulled back.
Stories. It could be a gig story. Can you think of anything that you think, oh my gosh, I wish I could fix that? I went to an Elton John show in Perth where the drummer got he got food poisoning just before the gig. Yeah. And he said, oh, we'll just do it without drums.
Yeah.
Like, you can do that?
That happened to me once. I was in London and I got the gastro bug. And so I was just vomiting in the green room like nonstop. And I remember I was just so sick in London, and the boys carried me down the stairs and put me on the drums. I had to play completely nauseated. So
dude,
yeah, that was pretty nuts.
You just need to have a bucket right there.
Yeah, I didn't vomit after that, which is crazy. And then I ate a pizza straight after, so I felt better. But on tour, you just, you know, you get sick and you got to keep going.
What's the biggest song you had that you were involved in that you were really proud of? How'd that come about?
I mean, one of the songs that I was a major part of was the song One Way Jesus. In Asia, it's so big that they still do it today. It just turned 20. They basically, in the Philippines, it's so popular that they call it Filipino national anthem. Because I travel to the Philippines a lot, like I'm basically the one-way guy. All the gigs I get, like we did 12,000 people in Philippines last year, and it's all because I'm the one-way guy. So I played the drums on that. I also helped write the song and wrote part of the chorus. I'm not on the credits, which is one of those things where it's like a nice $100,000 in the bank each year would have been nice. That's a long story. Being part of something like that where you're writing it in a room similar to this, which is a green room at the back of a church. And you're like, how about you're the only one that I could live for? You're like, that's the bit I wrote. And it goes in there and then it goes around the world and it blows up in every country, in every language and everything. And it becomes basically the most popular Christian song of somebody's country. Because I travel churches, they'll pull out the old songs that I wrote or played drums on or whatever. And sometimes they won't even know. I wrote that one. What? You wrote that? Still 20 years later, it's still getting done, especially in Asia. So America and Asia are very different. In Asia, they sort of hang in the 10 to 20 year ago thing, and anything new, they sort of reject it.
I know I worked with some churches in Singapore and, they're on Matt Redman, in his heyday, which is, that's 10, 15 years ago now.
Yeah.
But he's hitting it big.
The Matt Redman songs that we did 10 years ago, they'd be finding them now. And it's like, they're just very delayed. But I think it's their culture because they're like quite traditional.
Tell me this embarrassing story.
I went to the Belonging Co. on Sunday. It's my first time in Nashville. And, you know who you know, and you know the music that you know. So there's people outside of your scope. I go to Belonging Co. and I'm up the front. And a lovely guy introduces himself to me, and I thought he's one of the pastors of the church. I was like, cool, I'm meeting one of the pastors. So he introduced himself, and his name's Bernie Herms. So I'm like, cool, I'm meeting a pastor, Pastor Bernie. So I start talking to him, and he's like, what do you do? I'm like, yeah, I'm a music producer in Australia and an artist, and work with this many, these people, and we do this. And he starts talking about string arrangements, and I'm like, oh yeah, we do string arrangements down in Melbourne, and we have a really great guy. And yeah, and then he's like, yeah, I was just in RCA Studios the other day, and that used to be Ben Folds' studio, but he's passed it on, and telling me all these amazing stories. And I'm like, oh cool, that's really cool. And then he's like, yeah, I'm a music producer too. And I was like, oh great. And I was like, what have you done? And he's like, he's listing all these artists. He's like Selena Gomez and all this. And I'm starting going like, and all of a sudden I start getting like a sinking feeling. And I'm like, oh, maybe this guy's a big deal. So I'm like, so being Australian, I just blurt out, hey man, look, can you tell me who you are? Because I feel like I'm meant to know who you are, but I really don't. And so that's like this classic Australian, like we go for the elephant in the room. So then he's like, good. He tells me his story and who he's worked with, and says Selena Gomez and stuff. And I'm like, wow. And then he talks about his wife, Natalie. And I'm like, oh yeah, cool. Your wife, Natalie. That's cool. Who's that? She's one of the pastors here. And he's like, well, do you listen to any Christian music? And I was like, sometimes, yeah. He's like, well, Natalie Grant. And I was like, oh, Natalie Grant. And so I'm going in the back of my memory. I'm like, yeah, I think I know who that is. And then so I pull out Spotify and I'm trying to look her up, and it was really awkward. So he gave me his number, which was nice.
Well, I will tell you, I mean, Bernie's a legend. David Foster uses him to do stuff. I've actually mixed quite a bit of stuff that he's played on with Casting Crown. Yeah, you met somebody that's one of the top talents that I've ever heard. Yeah. But that's funny. Yeah. I feel for you, man.
So yeah, it's pretty awkward. Hopefully he'll talk to me again. Hopefully it'll be one of those stories. There was this really rich like IT guy, and I went around his house and I jumped on his jet ski and I basically nearly tipped it over. But now we're really good friends. So at the time I thought he's going to kill me and never talk to me again. So maybe Bernie, if you're out there, if you're listening to this podcast, please be my friend.
It's not over.
Yeah, it's not over.
I think it could still be special.
I think we can still make some beautiful music together, brother.
That's fantastic. Luke, thanks for doing this, man. I know we just decided to do this on the spur of the moment. Luke just came to Nashville and he's like, it's so cold. Right now it's 45. I don't know what that is, 8 degrees. But for a Brisbaneite, yeah, it's cold.
Yeah, we don't get cold.
You should have been here a few weeks ago. Oh my gosh, it was bitter. Thanks for dropping by. I'd love to have visitors. If you're in Nashville, come see me. We'll be tracking some more. I've heard your name around. I've seen it. You've been a Facebook friend for a while. Now I can place you.
Now we put a face to the name, we call that.
I always finish out with a handshake. Thanks for coming by, brother. Good to meet you.
Thank you for having me.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that discussion with Luke Munns. Some tough stuff there when it comes to songwriter shares and those kinds of things. A lot of emotion, and when business gets involved, it's a tough thing. It's good to have your ducks in a row before you enter into these things. So anyway, Luke is working that out with Hillsong. Next week, don't forget, Zach Kilm, manager of Skillet, Colton Dixon, and a few other people. He is an amazing manager. You're going to enjoy the discussion. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button. If you're on Instagram, follow the More Cowbell Please podcast profile. And if you see stuff there you like, please reshare it. That would be super helpful to me in getting the word out about this podcast. Till next time, I hope everything that goes in your ear holes is good. Have a great week.